RP. Joining us now, as he does every month for a little segment we like to call On the Air with Hillar Moore, is our district attorney. He's Baton Rouge District Attorney Hillar Moore. Hillar, welcome back, man. Happy New Year.
Same to you. How you been?
I've been very well. And you?
I'm good. It's a new year, getting ready to get started, and hopefully have a better year.
I hope that's not foreshadowing what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah.
So with a new year comes also a look back on what happened last year. So we're going to break down some of the numbers from last year. Where do you want to start?
You know, it looked like overwhelmingly most cities had some declines, but some bigger cities had some increases over the years, notably, obviously, New Orleans.
So New Orleans has been a mess.
Yeah.
It's hard to...
They didn't end up well.
No.
They probably had their highest year in decades, and I believe the New Orleans number was like 251 and counting. And that's about 5 homicides a week, I believe. And looking like this year, looking at the news, they are still at it in January.
Yeah.
And so it's just not good down there right now.
It's sad to see it continue, and there really doesn't seem to be an end in sight.
Yeah.
And it's not just the homicides; it's all the crime.
Yeah, it's all of it. And stuff around the Superdome, as you saw, cars being broken into. Juvenile crime is fairly high there as well. So that's a big concern. You know, Orleans is not the biggest city in Louisiana. Now we are. Baton Rouge, obviously, with population-wise since Katrina.
Okay. Yep.
And our numbers are considerably less, which is, we're fortunate. But that's a big difference, and I'm not sure how Orleans is going to curb that, but they really have to get onto it. It's scary.
Well, and the hard part about that is that so much of the economy is based off of perception of safety.
Yeah.
If you're traveling, if you're a tourist and you're looking for somewhere to go, and the only headlines, the only stories you could see about a city are, a couple hundred cars broken into during a Saints or a Pelicans game.
Right.
And what was it in Mid-City the other day? 3 people were killed. The police picked up, what was it, close to 100 rounds?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's that barrage of negativity, eventually that starts to take its toll on the bottom line. Obviously, taking its toll on life and taking lives is your priority number one, but when you lose livelihoods, you get more desperation. When you get more desperation, you get more crime.
Yeah, there's a big business group down there that have been meeting for some time, trying to raise private funds, trying to look at what's going on to see if they can assist law enforcement and the political structure there. So they're trying to raise $8 to $10 million a year, I believe, to give to these folks. Okay. We have a similar coalition going on here, and I think we're going to hopefully be real successful. But New Orleans it's scary. We know a lot of people that want to go down there, or people that come from all over the nation.
It's about to be Mardi Gras.
Yeah, Mardi Gras
we're in the carnival season right now.
And how do you handle that? But that's bad. And New Orleans will probably be the murder capital of the world this year because of that number.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it drives, the 3 cities drive our homicide rates, and it's New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and I think maybe Shreveport, and our numbers have come down, and that's a good thing. Okay,
let's talk about our numbers a little bit. Homicides, what did we see in 2022? And feel free to run the comparison to 2021 each time.
Yeah, so although we're happy to report, in the sense that our numbers are significantly down. We're down at 25% last year. So we're at 115 murders last year, which is way too many homicides for a city our size. If you compare us nationwide, we should be in the 50s compared to other cities.
Okay.
Historically, we've been 80s, and that's what our number is. But last year, we were at 115, but the year before that was 150.
Right.
So that's a big number.
Yeah.
Again, comparing Orleans, they had a big number year before last, but last year their numbers increased by 25%. Ours decreased. It's a good thing, but we need to get way further down from there.
Absolutely. So in 2021, if I'm remembering right, the year started off unbelievably violent. I mean, 2021 just got out the blocks in a hurry.
Yeah.
And 2022 did not see that same level of January, February violence. So were 2021, if you remove the first month or two, were they about on par after that?
So your memory is pretty good, because January of 2021 we had 17 homicides.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, you can look at this chart, and that's pretty much unheard of. And in 2022, we had 8. So we started off with half at the beginning of the year. But then we picked up in February, March with 14 and 10 each month. So some of the summer months this year were slower than we thought normally would be. So the one big difference was in 2021, we had 36 domestic violence or intimate partner-related homicides. This past year, we had 26. So that accounts for a decent amount of decline. So that's a big number there. But again, our overwhelming numbers of people that kill themselves are those that know each other, that are involved in group or gang activity, that are involved in beefs with each other, or involved in drugs.
So let's talk about that for just a minute, because when you look at Baton Rouge's numbers, they are even with the 25% decline, they are still pretty overwhelming.
Yes.
But what we see, though, is, or what we have seen in the numbers, is the percentage of those that would be drug related is really, really high. The percentage of those that are domestic, like you said, you said it was the number was down to 26.
26 of 115.
Okay. So once you remove the drug related and the domestic, and we're not trivializing that at all, but I'm talking about for somebody who is not actively seeking or selling drugs, and somebody who is not in an unfortunate or a terrible situation within their home, where are we at when it comes to our own level of safety and the remaining homicides?
So the one part you left out, or involved in group or gang related activities. So those three things.
I lump those two together.
Yes.
Drugs and the gangs I lump together.
You can.
Yeah.
So when we say, we don't use the term group, we use the term, we use the term gang, we use group. So group related violence can be a family as a group that's feuding with another family. It could be a drug dealing group feuding with another.
When you say a family, like
families, we have families that
like the Hatfields and McCoys.
We have old beefs from many years ago that families have carried on. It doesn't account for the.
I mean, you don't mean like, you don't mean like, mafia family. No, you mean like actual bloodline families.
Where family members have been killed many years ago that don't forget.
Okay.
And things like that happen. But overwhelmingly, the groups are, a group can be a group of kids surrounding around a neighborhood, a group of people dealing drugs versus another group dealing drugs, or a traditional group that has a name that they call themselves and have letters and signs. But that's the overwhelming number. The ones that you're talking about, you're talking about the regular citizen who's a law-abiding citizen.
Going to work, coming home every day.
Absolute minimal chance that person is going to be killed by a homicide. Homicide is never random. The term never is too strong, because we've seen Ali Rice. We've seen Devin Page. Or we've seen those. So never, but it's out of 115, there are a handful that you can say just not random.
And when the Ali Rices and Devin Pages, when those things happen, it puts everybody on higher alert and exacerbates the overall number.
Yeah, when you see that number,
perception.
Yes, when you see the number, and when it occurs on a location such as Government Street, everyone passes by.
Literally every morning on my way into work.
Yeah, so it does. So, but people have to keep that in perspective. But still, the number is way too high, and we just can't have that number.
East Baton Rouge District Attorney Hillar Moore is our guest. We call it On the Air with Hillar. We do this roughly once a month. I want to pause from the numbers for just a second to get an explanation on something.
Yeah.
You said we say groups, not gangs. Tell me why.
Because gangs are here in Louisiana. Gangs are normally highly structured with like a president, CEO, and they have rules and regulations that they send down to the people that are in the gangs, like the Crips and the Bloods. They're in business just like any other business, to do things that are not necessarily legal, but they also do not want to get caught. And so they have rules and regulations to tell their people, this is the business that we're in, but we're not going to go do stupid things to get caught and bring our organization down, because we're in business. Groups don't have that type of hierarchy or structure to where they have rules to follow and people saying, hey, don't do this. They just go out, and they're more violent than a regular gang can be, and they tend to be younger as well.
Okay, so when you hear group instead of gang, though, there's a perception that we're not, quote unquote, at that level. But what you're saying is by not having the moniker gang, it's actually more dangerous.
Correct.
It's,
Yes.
and I've talked with Chief Paul about this before, and he's used the term gang before.
Yeah, and because whenever we say group, then we have to explain.
Right.
And then you try to explain it. It's well, you're just trying to say we don't have gangs. No, we have groups, which sometimes are more dangerous.
Well, yeah. It just from y'all's end, you don't want to split hairs, but from the perception end of it, there was no movie called The Groups of New York.
Correct. So I mean, but if you read the literature on all of this, you'll see where they'll use the terms, but they will also define group versus gang.
Can groups become gangs?
Yes.
And are we at a spot where we're at risk of that evolving into that?
You know, we have some groups here that are surely more structured and more violent than others. And I would say 4 to 6 groups right now that are highly violent, repeat offenders that we are surely we're knowledgeable of and attempting to do everything that we can do to bring them down.
One of the things that often gets lost in the wash is that statement right there. It's like, why don't we see just big roundups? You know what? I asked you that question with 1 minute to go before break. That was a bad host. Sorry. There's not enough time to explain that before we hit the break.
Yeah.
We can talk about it a little bit off the air. He is District Attorney Hillar Moore, joins us every month. We're breaking down crime numbers, but I do want to stick with that because there is a good answer to that question. Why don't we see just a big roundup? If we know that there's people that are suspected of this type of activity, if we all quote unquote know, why don't we just see some sort of a mass level roundup? All right, we're going to hit your money now on air. We're going to check traffic one more time on air. The conversation will continue over on Facebook Live with District Attorney Hillar Moore. We do this every single month, and we're going to break down some more numbers next. Actually, stick around with us on Facebook Live. In fact, let's get your feedback on Facebook Live. If you got a question for Hillar, put it up there, and we'll continue that conversation right now. On air, like we said, here comes your money now on Talk 107.3 FM. No, because there is a good. So we're still on Facebook. There is a good answer to that question. It's like, if you know they're out there, why don't we just go get them?
So it takes years of work because nobody wants to talk or cooperate.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of infiltration into a group or a gang, and they just generally are very cautious. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take long-term looks at groups and gangs before you can actually do a long-term indictment. And so it's a 2 and 3 year process.
Wow. Okay.
Now sometimes you will catch them. You'll see. You won't hear us say, "Hey, we just arrested X amount of people, and they belong to this particular group that we have a name for." But we are seeing those arrests. You see big arrests by the Sheriff's Office Narcotics Division with guns and heroin and fentanyl. Those are groups.
Okay.
Because they're a group of people dealing drugs. They may not have a name to themselves, but they are groups that they pick off 8 at a time.
Let's revisit that when we come back on after the break. While we're on just with Facebook, let's continue with a few of the other numbers. Stepping away from homicides, do we have numbers on other crimes?
So on last year we wound up with 2.75 less heroin fentanyl overdose deaths. Not a big number.
2.75.
Yeah.
How is someone 3/4 dead?
No, a number of people. So 303 confirmed dead last year from fentanyl versus 200 and something a year before.
Oh, okay.
So, so we have been going in the right direction. I think this year so far we've had 8 dead in 10 days. Now,
ridiculous.
Those 8, obviously, since they just happened, we can't confirm fentanyl. We have presumptive positives, but we have to wait several weeks or months to get that done. But so the numbers are still continuing. People are still dying of heroin fentanyl. But the numbers has slightly declined, which is a good thing.
It is. Moving from a number to a trend is where we all want to be, though.
So we're way too early to say we're making any direction. Is the drugs, the anti-drugs, is it helping? Some places are now selling that Naxalone, whatever it's called, in vending machines where you can buy that now in some states to make it more available to people that need it. Narcan, I'm sorry. Some states have passed that legislation where you can get it in a vending machine and use it How many people are actually continue to use it, but being saved by that is probably a lot.
Really?
'Cause those that use it are using that EpiPen or the pen, like a EpiPen, and saving a lot of lives.
I wonder what the unintended consequence of that is going to be.
I don't know.
But I'll take it for now.
To my knowledge, none. That I did see a study that some university in Texas has a shot that they're working on that you can give that will prevent you from ever overdosing on fentanyl because it stops the receptors in the brain.
Okay, I saw that topic the other day. I cannot wait to actually have some time to devote to that.
So
that sounds so unbelievably.
So it's a vaccine.
Yeah.
It's about a year or two away from what I read. The question is, the question always is going to be, well, you can't get the high.
You can't get the high, so do you try harder?
It's going to be a good question. I don't know that, but a bigger question legal is, how can a judge or parent legally force someone to take a vaccine? Can you do that?
I mean, hasn't that been the center of so many fights over the last 3 years?
I think that's going to be an issue. So more than likely it's going to be that you just can't, like, it's going to be like castration or whatever.
Right.
That you can't lawfully order someone to do it, but they could maybe do it on their own. Mm-hmm. Will that person really want to do that? Will they look for a different drug than that one? And will it be cocaine, or what will it be?
That whole scenario scares the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because it's if you get a shot or whatever, a pill, whatever it is that is the quote unquote vaccine, and you've killed the effects of the high, and are you still addicted though? Because if you go to seek that high and you don't find it, you up your dosage.
Yeah.
And you keep upping your dosage until you're dead.
Yeah, and although you don't get high, does it do other things to your organs? I have no idea.
Right.
Way above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But that's something to really take a look at. It sounds encouraging.
It does
for someone.
It does. When I was hearing it first pitched by the scientists that were doing the research, it was like it sounded like it could be a game changer to get people on the right path.
Yeah.
So,
because it's really hard to shake. I've heard some percentages that it's 2% recovery. Those that that are really addicted to it to get off of it, it's just not good.
Yeah.
So maybe when we come back to, we could also talk about where people were killed this year.
Okay.
It's a slight difference.
We're going to revisit the why not just round them up, and then we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we have time for both. Jason says on Facebook, there's a pretty bad crime family I know of in Baker, the Clouds. Generations of drug dealers in prison incarceration, and they start them young in that family. So this is, I find it like fascinating.
No doubt.
All right. Learned something new today. 856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Every month we do On the Air with Hillar Moore, and that's what we're doing right now, talking about the homicide numbers from 2022. We've been covering the what. We're going to cover the where in just a minute. But Hillar, we were talking about an interesting topic heading in the break.
Yeah.
And I threw out a question that I probably should have sat on until after the break. But here we go. If we know so much about these groups and we know so much about the people involved in these groups, why don't we just see them all rounded up?
Well, you just can't round up people. You need to have, probable cause, arrest warrants. You have to have people that cooperate, that give you information. You have to vet that information. So it's easier said than done. It'd be great that we know who they are and just pick them up, put them in jail. But where's the evidence and where's the proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Very few people cooperate. Very few group or gang members, whatever you want to use, want to cooperate and testify against another snitch. So we generally have to make our cases historically by things that we see, by cell phones, by text messaging, all of those types of things, ballistics, DNA, without a lot of testimony, and it's hard to do.
Have we gotten anywhere with the helping folks or encouraging folks to speak up, to testify? There's been so many outreach efforts, so many different groups are trying to make that more palatable for those that know something.
Yeah, it's the no snitch mentality is still heavily ingrained here and across the United States. people are afraid of having their house shut up, and it happens.
Yeah.
And not only just having your house shut up, but it's the indirect things on social media and folks calling you out and knowing who you are and that you possibly cooperated or not. That is a really big negative effect on not only the person, but that person's family. Because if they can't get to the person who's the so-called snitch, it's a family member.
Got a couple minutes left with District Attorney Hillar Moore. Let's talk about the where. And we've got, if we run over on air, we can continue on Facebook Live. So, where are we seeing these?
I just noted that this year was significantly different than some others, but 70816 was the area, the zip code that we saw the overwhelming number of homicides. And this year it's 21. So if you look at the map here, 70816 is out toward the interstate, and 21. So traditionally, you and I always talk about 70805.
Right, 70805.
Brookstown.
Yeah.
70802, which is around LSU Highland Road, the bottom, so to speak. So this year, 16 had 21, 02 had 20, and 05 had 18. So those are the three top numbers. When you look at 70816 historically, back in 2016 starting, there was 1. And then 2017, there was 9, big jump. And then back down in 2018 to 3, 2019 to 11, 2020 to just a handful. And then this number, it's crazy.
So we're just about done on the air. I'm teasing you. Head over to Facebook Live right now. It's Talk 1073 Facebook page. We're not done yet. We're talking with District Attorney Hillar Moore. 70816, if you're just trying to map that out at home, Airline at I-12, Sherwood at I-12. Both of these locations are within 70816. Hillar, I appreciate the time. And we'll stick around. We'll see y'all tomorrow on air. Move over to Facebook Live. All right.
So, kind of as you...
am I oversimplifying it?
No, you brought up... So that brings up another question that we've had. You've seen in the news, the articles written by James Finn, I think, with the Advocate and others. Yes, about the OYO hotels and the hotels around that strip.
Yep.
The business people that have businesses there are complaining. We're trying to take some action against those hotels because we've seen a lot of increase in shootings and homicides. And it's been there for years. Yes. The pandemic really exacerbated things there, and now we're seeing them again and taking action.
What kind of action? So before working in radio, I worked in a hotel. Yeah. So there are hotels that are like legit, and then the hotels that just drop everything off the planet. What kind of action can be taken against an OYO or the what was the one that's by Chuck E. Cheese over there?
Red Roof Inn.
Is it still a Red Roof or Fairbridge?
So those there's a statute that's pretty old statute that's called a nuisance abatement, and it allows the mayor, chief, sheriff, DA, councilperson, attorney general, anyone like that to take action if certain amounts of crimes or calls for service occur over a certain period of time, 2 years or 5 years. And that's the action that we try to take. So we have to give them notice that they're in violation. Then we have to sue them in court, and the judge can shut them down for some period of time. That means if a judge shuts them down, they do displace a lot of people. Not sure where those guys are going to go.
That's where the big question comes up. And this is, and I know, I'm not going to try to pin you down for an answer on this, but you're faced with the decision of, do you shut them down and move them over to another hotel where your innocent tourist who's just traveling through town might be, or is there value in kind of just let them stay there because you know where they're at?
Well, I don't know. The answer is difficult. But the question is, who is staying at those places and where they're from? Are they actually from Louisiana, or are they staying there because of the price, because of the lack of security, the lack of ID that maybe they need? Are they people coming from out of state? And they're right there off the interstate, in and out. They're dealing drugs. Are they prostitution? Is there trafficking? What's going on there that's causing them to be there and that action to happen? So,
that's where you run into all the problems. Not so much at the Sherwood exit, but at the airline exit, where you've got on the one side, there is that Mike Rattel. I don't know if they get calls. There's a sleep in there. There's an OYO and America's Best. There's two OYOs, actually, and an America's Best that are within that one little stretch right there. So if you are if you're just a traveler who's getting off the interstate and you see a Holiday Inn, which is just on the other side of Airline,
Yes.
and if you're just looking to, hey, we're going to stay the night, we'll head back on the road tomorrow. If OYO is shut down, all those people who were doing any drug trafficking or human trafficking or anything else that's going on at OYO, they're now looking for a place to stay.
Well, can they afford, or will they be accepted at the other hotel because of different regulations that hotel uses?
Okay, good
so
question.
that's a big deal. The other is several of the council folks. I know Councilor Lori Adams. They're working on a new hotel motel ordinance.
I had Lori on this week to talk about that,
and so we're working on that now. I think we can still continue to improve on that. But my next gripe is about apartment complexes, because the hotel motel ordinances will not cover apartment complexes. Just right before the end of the year, before Christmas, there was another murder at the Lark Apartments right by LSU. And that's the second murder there in 3 years. And that place is advertised that they have a lot of security. And there are cameras all over the place. This is the second time that a homicide occurred that cameras were not working. There is no ordinance that says they must. In my opinion, if you're in business and you dealing with the public like we do, we should be able to say you must have security, you must have cameras in place, particularly at LSU when you have people that are coming here from all over the world.
right?
And you advertise that you have security, and a parent does as good due diligence as they can, maybe without coming here and checking to see if the cameras are working. It says security, they show cameras. I feel bad for those parents.
Very much so. Very much so. And yeah, you mentioned LSU, and you said there was two at the Hub.
No, the Lark.
The Lark. Oh, sorry.
Yesterday was the Hub as a different.
That was the one with the dogs.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, the Lark. But not even mentioning what's going on in Tigerland, which has been, I mean, I know from your end, infuriating.
Yeah, it's Tigerland, the one location that we're working with now, they now have been in bankruptcy. There's someone buying the note out. The new company that took over, new owners, did not make but one payment. So now the bank has foreclosed on the property. We are working with the team that is managing the property now. We're hoping to have a meeting pretty soon with them again to see
for Tiger
what's
Plaza?
going to happen. Yes.
Yeah. So, and Tiger Plaza was just the subject of a number of news stories last year. There's another apartment complex in Tigerland, if you go around the corner from there, that I know has been the bane of your existence for some time. Where are we at on that one?
That one has numbers have slowed down tremendously.
Really?
We took some action against them, have changed some things. That one has slowed down tremendously.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Before we get you out of here, and thanks for sticking around a little bit after the fact, are there other hotspots that, or when it comes down to the areas and the places and the where, anything else that's really on your radar is alarming?
Yeah, I mean, there are a list of top places where there are calls for service that we're looking at. We're trying to take the top ones as we come. We're really not staffed or equipped to do this.
Yeah.
This is way out of what we traditionally normally do. And again, the statute says that any entity that I named can do this, but we're taking the lead on this. We did have on the OYOs, we just served them a week ago. I was joined in that by the mayor, the chief, the sheriff, and Councilman Adams, who's in that district, that signed the letter with me. So we'll see what happens there.
He is District Attorney Hillar Moore. We get together about once a month for On the Air with Hillar Moore. Appreciate y'all sticking around. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.